It is Friday, December 11th, and this is my news radar. So I guess when your game sells 8 million units before it comes out, so 8 million units as pre-orders, I guess I kind of have to start the show talking about that game. And of course, what I'm talking about is Cyberpunk 2077. It is out in the wild. You folks are likely playing it currently. We've got some absolutely astonishing numbers when it comes to Cyberpunk's release. So when we're looking at this article from IGN, we're seeing a tweet here from Cyberpunk 2077's official Twitter account. We are truly humbled, it reads, that so many of you trusted us and have decided to support Cyberpunk 2077 before the release. 8 million thank yous isn't enough, indicating there are more than 8 million pre-orders that have been accumulated perhaps, for this game. Now, if we dig in a little bit deeper in this tweet from Zuby Tech, this is actually even more nuts than it sounds. PC is accounting for 59% of those pre-orders, making it perhaps the fastest selling PC game of all time. I believe that in the same amount of time, Grand Theft Auto 5 did about 11 million total sales. We're looking at over 8 million for Cyberpunk, which means that if trends continue, perhaps Cyberpunk could be the fastest selling game period of all time. And that's not really too shocking to me because I'm seeing it absolutely everywhere. I can't really think of a game that has encompassed so much of my sphere like Cyberpunk has. It's weird because my close friends, like none of us are playing it, but like everybody I see on Twitter is playing Cyberpunk. So sticking with Cyberpunk 2077, there's an article that Kotaku has up where they talk about the comparison between what we're seeing on the PS5 and the Xbox Series as well as PC, and then comparing that to what you're seeing on the last gen now console, so the PS4 and the Xbox One. And look, it doesn't look great, and that is apparently why this game was delayed the final time. They were trying to get this thing going, at a better visual fidelity than they were evidently going to be able to succeed with, and it appears as though there's still a lot left there to be desired. So they've got these little comparison shots here, which are actually really, really good. You can see here, this is on the Xbox One. You can see, look at the blurriness of his face of these items here. And then if you jump over to the PC version, I mean, it's night and day. Absolutely night and day. Here's another good example where, look, the game is not ugly, but it's blurry. I mean, it's blurry there on the Xbox One. On the Xbox Series X, it is markedly improved. Resolution is just not there. Now, in addition to the giant gap between the PC and the current gen consoles visual fidelity and what's being seen on the last gen consoles, which most people still have, the game has also been unfortunately riddled with bugs, some of which are actually quite entertaining to take a look at. We've got an image here. You got a guy sitting in the air on nothing. We've got an issue here where Chris Livingston says he can't progress in the game because he can't stop watching every single driver slowly crash into this one barricade and then yell at him for it. This is actually not a game-breaking bug, but quite amusing to watch every driver clip through this stone barricade one after another while strangely getting angry at him for it. In fact, simply searching Cyberpunk glitches on Twitter unveils an absolute deluge of videos of strange things happening. This car is hovering halfway in the air. Here's another version of the same glitch where some of the textures of plants are appearing through other textures. This is a pretty cool one here where when this guy looks at everybody, turns around and everybody's gone, turns back, and those people are all gone as well. The game is, I mean, look, I don't want to say that it's broken because it's not as if these things are keeping people from being able to complete the game necessarily, although there have been some reports of exactly that happening. But bare minimum, the game does have a ton of glitches, and you can imagine a lot of patches are going to have to be on the way to squash these things. This reminds me of a lot of the Bethesda games like Fallout that are absolutely chock-a-block with glitches and bugs and weird things happening. And Sometimes it actually adds to the enjoyment of the game because it's silly and it kind of adds to the character of the game. There's one particular glitch going around that I won't show you for obvious reasons, but it's basically a situation where some areas of people that maybe you wouldn't want to be visible are clipping through their clothing, making those areas visible. Yeah, I won't go any further than that. That's quite hilarious, although it might be a little bit distracting while playing the game, although you're playing in first person, so you don't even see it unless you're looking at your inventory, I guess, so who cares? At any rate, Cyberpunk appears to be a massive, massive hit. I'd love to know how many of you guys are enjoying it currently. Let me know down in the comments down there. So I really enjoyed the Bioshock franchise from back in the day, Bioshock Infinite, of course, being the last one. Well, it looks like we actually have some rumors of what is going to happen next in that franchise being developed by Cloud Chamber Games via a job listing. So this article on Games Radar reads, new job openings from developer Cloud Chamber Games include senior voice designer and refers to the upcoming game they'll be working on as an ambitious, narratively driven project full of character and personality. The applicant, who must have RPG experience, would help design the game's dialogue systems, which the Reset Era poster Maru NL suggests the dialogue system may be similar to the Fallout games, which offer a selection of responses to prompts so they can shift gameplay or NPCs' opinions of you. So that'll be a pretty big difference there, whereas the Bioshock games in the past were very linear, narrative-driven games. This is indicating more of an open RPG, and this is doubled down upon when you see a listing for systems designer that describes the game as an emergent sandbox world, including interactive world systems and non-AI systemic ecology, player growth systems and progressions, and game balance and economy. So that's actually really fascinating. I would love to see what a Bioshock game would look like that wasn't such a linear style game. Obviously, the first ones kind of were exploration based. They almost reminded me of something like Metroid, where you could, explore different areas and get further each time because of maybe things you've unlocked and so forth. Whereas Bioshock Infinite was a very linear, straightforward story being told. What would an open world Bioshock style game even be? I'm really not sure, but I would love to find out. And last but not least, we have two a new review for the Surface Duo and a re-review for the Surface Duo that I think both of which are actually worth reading. So the first one is on Forbes, which is cool because Forbes is who actually just put the Duo on their top however many whatever inventions of 2020. Anshel Sag, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, wrote a pretty good review here about the Duo. He calls it misunderstood and underappreciated. He has a very different take. He says, unlike most reviewers, my experience was mostly positive. I attribute the discrepancy to the fact that I started using the device after the first major software update fixed many of the initial issues. Obviously, this is something I've talked about a lot, how much the updates have actually improved the Surface Duo experience, and he's kind of echoing that response as well. He talks about it being a productivity powerhouse, compares it to something like the LG V60. These things probably sound familiar to you if you are a consistent watcher of my content. And he finishes up basically calling it a great first try. Definitely something to check out. I'll link to this article in the description down below. Definitely worth a read. And the other one is actually from Daniel Rubino on Windows Central. And he basically gives a 3-month in re-review, which is something I've been considering doing myself. I'd love to know if you guys would like to hear my 3-month re-review as well, or should I hold out for 6 months? Should I do periodically? I'd love to know what you guys would like to see from that sort of content. And Daniel basically says similar things to what I've been saying, that it's getting much better. It's still not where it needs to be. It's still not the perfect device. Still has a lot of problems, and a lot of these problems aren't going to get fixed. That camera is just not going to be a good camera in low light, period, no matter what they do. But he does talk a lot about how much better the experience has gotten overall, and it has gotten a lot better. The biggest disappointment for me, I think, is how many reviewers checked it out, saw it was buggy, saw it had a lot of problems, folded it up, put it in a drawer, and never went back to it again to check to see where it actually is now. And I think that's where people like Rubino in this article from Forbes, and then myself playing a small role as well, actually do a service to you guys that are actually waiting, watching the price come down, deals popping up, and wanting to see if this thing is ready to go yet. I've always been one of those people that, look, I buy things early on. I like to be an early adopter. But I also do things like wait until there's a price drop a lot on other things. Like I just picked up a set of Surface headphones after there was a big sale on them. I'm not going to necessarily buy them for the full retail price, but when they're a little bit cheaper, That's great. And what was troubling for me was trying to look and see, what kind of firmware updates had happened on the Surface headphones. Has the sound quality improved any? Couldn't really find a whole lot of definitive information there, so I'm trying to fill that gap with the Surface Duo. And this article, both articles I've shown you, I think do a good job of doing that as well. So guys, that's all the content I have for you today. Be sure to check back every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for the next edition of my News Radar. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends. If you enjoy my content, please consider becoming a Scary If Literal member. You'll get access to a whole bunch of emoticons to use with live streams and a shout out on an upcoming video. Thanks as always for your continued support.